So we're going to pick up with pages 6 and 7 of the Great Gatsby. I just tried recording page number 6 and my children rudely interrupted me. So we're going to start back at the beginning because I deleted that screencast. Her husband, Daisy's husband, among various physical accomplishments, had been one of the most powerful ends that ever played football at New Haven, so at Yale. A national figure in a way, one of those men who reached such an acute limited excellence at 21, so age of 21, that everything afterward savors of anticlimax. So Tom Buchanan had great physical football success while he was at Yale University, and he was nationally known for his football skill. And now everything that happens after is anticlimax, meaning his good old days, his best days were at age 21. His best days were college football, and he's never going to reach that again. So now, even though he's older, and now he's married to Daisy, he's spending all of his time trying to find those good old days. It's kind of like those high school athletes who kind of live their glory days back in high school and spend the rest of their life just talking about those glory days, meaning they're never going to meet it. They're never going to find success like that again. The difference about Tom Buchanan is that he gets to get away with this because his family is ultra wealthy and they are different, multimillionaire kind of wealthy. So he gets to do this. He's forever searching for his lost sports youth. His family were enormously wealthy. Even in college, his freedom with money was a matter for reproach. So even at Yale, Tom was spending so much money that other people would talk to him about, whoa, dude, slow it down kind of thing. But now he'd left Chicago and come east in a fashion that rather took your breath away. For instance, he brought down a string of polo ponies. The polo ponies are thoroughbreds, these days like 100 grand a piece. I mean, they're ultra rich kind of thing, from Lake Forest. It was hard to realize that a man in my own generation was wealthy enough to do that. So just note the tone with which Nick says all of this. There's a tone of admiration. He knows what Tom is, and he knows Tom is that athlete who's forever looking for his former glory days, but there's also some admiration from Nick. Why they came east, Tom and Daisy, I don't know. They had spent a year in France for no particular reason, and then drifted here and there unrestfully, wherever people played polo and were rich together. Guys, let's be logical about this. How many of us can afford to do this? How many of us could float around the world for a year, living on daddy's money, and just be rich together? So this is a very privileged kind of life. This was a permanent move, said Daisy over the telephone, but I didn't believe it. When Daisy says this is a permanent move, she's talking about coming here to East Egg. This is it. They're settling down. But Nick is noting that he doesn't believe her. I had no sight into Daisy's heart, but I felt that Tom would drift on forever, seeking a little wistfully for the dramatic turbulence of some irrevocable football game. So he doesn't think Tom is ever going to settle down because he's always going to be looking for those lost glory days. And so it happened that on a warm, windy evening, I drove over to East Egg to see two old friends whom I scarcely knew at all. Okay, this is Tom revealing, not Tom, I'm sorry, Nick, revealing his inner truth. So he's driving over to East Egg, the Buchanans, and remember, this is old money, this is privilege, back for generations, to see two old friends whom I scarcely knew. What the heck? That is ironic, it's hypocritical. How can you see two old friends, but you don't know them at all? Their house was even more elaborate than I expected, a cheerful red and white Georgian colonial mansion overlooking the bay. The lawn started at the beach and ran toward the front door for a quarter of a mile. Guys, a yard, that's a quarter mile long. I mean, think about it. Jumping over sundials and brick walks and burning gardens. Finally, when it reached the house drifting up the side in bright vines, as though from the momentum of its run. The front was broken by a line of French windows, glowing now with reflected gold. So notice white and now gold, and wide open to the warm, windy afternoon. And Tom Buchanan in riding clothes, so polo riding clothes, was standing with his legs apart on the front porch. This is worth noting because of all of the poses that Fitzgerald could put Tom in. Tom is kind of the man of the house. He's standing on that porch, legs spread, that strong man, and he's making this impression as Nick comes walking up. Note that. Over to page 7. Tom had changed since his New Haven days, so since Yale. Now he was a sturdy, straw haired man of 30 with a rather hard mouth and a supercilious manner. You can look up supercilious on your own, but supercilious tends to mean condescending, better than. And notice how aggressively physical Tom is. Whose shining, arrogant eyes had established dominance over his face and gave him the appearance of always leaning aggressively forward. The thing about his aggressiveness and Tom's condescension, did he earn any of this money? No, he didn't. He's inherited it. But man, he's enjoying his privilege. And he walks through life very aggressive, very physical. He thinks he deserves this. Not even the effeminate swank of his riding clothes could hide the enormous power of that body. He seemed to fill those glistening boots until he strained the top lacing, and you could see a great pack of muscles shifting when his shoulder moved under his thin coat. It was a body capable of enormous leverage, a cruel body, a physical body. Guys, I think about Gaston in Beauty and the Beast. If you've seen, oh, what's the MMA movie? Um, oh, I forget about the title of it, but Tom Hardy stars in it, and Tom Hardy got super ripped for that movie. Um, Tom Buchanan is just a physical specimen in the book. His speaking voice, a gruff, husky tenor, added to the impression of fractiousness he conveyed. So there's nothing kind or settled about this man. It's like he's always fractious, he's always aggressive, he's always looking for the fight. There was a touch of paternal contempt in it. To have contempt means you look down on other people, even toward people he liked. And there were men at New Haven who had hated his guts. I'm not surprised by that. And I bet you Tom enjoyed um, lording his power over other men. Now, don't think my opinion on these matters is final, he seemed to say, just because I'm stronger and more of a man than you. So this is Nick reading into Tom's manner, and this is how Nick interprets Tom's manner. He's more of a man than Nick. We were in the same senior society, and while we were never intimate, I always had the impression that he approved of me and wanted me to like him with some harsh, defiant wistfulness of his own. I'm wondering if Tom understands that he puts other people off and he probably has no true friends, but he kind of wants Nick to like him. But Nick tells us they were never close friends, they were never close intimates, they never shared secrets. There's a part of Tom that seems to want that. We talked for a few minutes on the sunny porch. I've got a nice place here, he said, his eyes flashing about restlessly. Now, think about this. Normally, if you're at somebody's house for the first time, it's you saying, "Oh, you've got a nice place here. Oh, I really like your house. Oh, this is a pretty yard." Notice who says it here? It's Tom who puts it out there. It's a little awkward. Turning me around by one arm, he moved a broad, flat hand along the front vista, including in its sweep a sunken Italian garden, a half acre of deep, pungent roses. Guys, a half acre of roses, really? I grow roses, but I can only afford so many rose bushes. Holy heaven, a half acre of them, and a snub-nosed motorboat that bumped the tide offshore. It belonged to Domain, the oil man. He turned me around politely and abruptly. We'll go inside. So, trying to establish status here, my house was once owned by. We walked through a high hallway into a bright, rosy colored space, fragilely bound into the house by French windows at either side, at either end, rather. The windows were ajar and gleaming white against the fresh grass outside that seemed to grow a little way into the house. A breeze blew through the room, blew curtains in at one end and out the other like pale flags, twisting them up toward the frosted wedding cake of the ceiling, and then rippled over the wine-colored rug, making a shadow on its wind does as on it as wind does on the sea. Okay, guys, we're going to call it here. Just a few things that I want to note. The paleness, the whiteness again. There's almost this pastel feeling of the inside of the house. And now we're about to meet Daisy Buchanan, and she's going to be dressed all in white. So I want you thinking about that symbolization.